Welcome back. By your request, today's video is going to be about, is it affordable and what does it cost to be able to raise meat chickens on your property? If you've seen my other videos, you've had a chance to see how we raised them from chicks all the way through the full 10 weeks until we harvested chickens. And I have videos on bringing the chicks home and starting them in the brooder, moving them out to pasture, butchering day, and even how to break down the chickens and package them for freezing. What I didn't do yet, and I'm doing today, is to show you how the mathematics works and what's involved. What do you need for infrastructure and how do you need to set it all up? So let me walk you through that. I'll share with you some notes that I put together and you can decide for yourself. I think you're going to see that it's quite worth it. I'm fortunate to live very close to the Freedom Ranger hatchery in Reinholds, Pennsylvania. It's only about a half an hour for me to get over there. So we go ahead over and pick them up ourselves, and that way we don't experience the loss sometimes when they ship chicks out. Lots of people receive shipped chicks. It works out just fine. But if you live close enough, make the drive. I love raising Freedom Rangers. I talk about why in my other videos, but today I just want to share with you the economics of it all. And the cost of getting the Freedom Ranger chicks is $1 a piece. I buy 120 at a time. They usually throw in 3 or 4 extra for us. You do experience some loss sometimes in the brooder as they're first getting adjusted. And sometimes we lose a few in the pasture as well from predators, or also just sometimes we've actually had them not get out of the way when we're moving it and we have run into them and killed them. But mostly we can count on getting 120 to the end or darn close to it. So for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to do all of my numbers based on 120 chicks. Okay. First, probably most obvious cost is the feed cost. We are able to buy our feed from a local grain mill, and they make it in Stevens, Pennsylvania. It's Stevens Feed Mill. They provide us with a non-GMO feed, which is a really high quality grain. Most of the people that we have talked to in the area say that they are the best option that we have. And I think they're very affordable. I think they're a very fair price, and they deliver to my house. That total cost is about $500 for 120 birds. That comes out to $4.16 a bird. Okay, there are a few consumable costs that you're going to absorb every single time you raise chickens. That's pine shavings that I get from Tractor Supply. I buy 4 bales at $6 a bale. It's $24. I always buy lime and diatomaceous earth. I use one or the other, sometimes both. I keep it on hand, but if I had to go buy it, I would account for about maybe $10 for every batch of chickens that I raise. I like to keep it nice and dry inside and inside the brooder. Once they move out to pasture, I don't use it anymore. Okay, I also account for electric costs in the brooder. I wanted to give you a total picture of what it would cost to raise the chicks. And we calculated about $45 in electric cost for the couple of weeks that they're inside the brooder. I have 3 lights going. I buy 3 of the red bulbs. I keep them going pretty much all of the time. If it's really warm during the day, we obviously shut them down. But I calculated to run those for the 3 weeks or so that they're in the brooder is about $45. All right, the next cost is a fixed cost that you can spread out over time, and that's the construction cost of the pens themselves. Now, the brooder that we had, we didn't have to spend any money on. I had old chicken wire. I have space inside my greenhouse. I kind of just set up with what I had. Really didn't have any cost in that. You may have to account for some additional costs on that. We were lucky to have extra materials laying around. But the pens themselves, the chicken tractors that we put them out on pasture, we did start from scratch with those. And I calculated about $700 for 2 mobile chicken tractors. We have a classic motto in our family that if you're going to do something, why not do it bigger and better? So that means that we ended up with a chicken tractor that's probably larger and overbuilt than what you would need to do. There's certainly the option to go with the Joel Salatin style chicken tractor, which is lighter weight, probably easier to move than what we have. But the system we have works great for us, but it is an overbuild. So you could save some money here. We spent about $700. You could probably do it for $400 or less. All right, so additional startup costs include feeders, waterers, those sorts of things. And these are fixed costs that you can spread out over time. We made our feeders out of PVC, and they were large 6-inch, I think, PVC trays, 1 for each of the chicken tractors, and that cost us about $60. We also bought 2 of the 5-gallon heavy-duty waters for when we move them out to pasture. They get the big water. They're taking a lot. They drink at least 5 gallons a day, sometimes more. buy the heavy duty ones. It's worth it. I've been raising chickens and children long enough to know to buy the heavy duty ones. They cost us $35 each, so you're looking at $70. Okay, I had heat lamps available because I've been raising chickens for a long time, so I just had to buy a few new bulbs, but if you had to buy heat lamps, they're about $8 each, and the bulbs are about $5 a piece. So I calculated $39 for this, assuming that you had to go and buy it new. And lastly, we made the decision to add a solar charger and electric around our pens when they're out at pasture. We had a few critters digging underneath and we had a few issues, so we invested $150 or so to set that up. It worked out great. I didn't have any more predators after that. Worthwhile investment. All right, now calculating total construction costs for everything that you're going to invest in, that you're going to keep and spread out over I'm using 5 years as the time frame that I think I can utilize both the chicken tractors that I built as well as most of the equipment that I purchased, like the feeders and the waterers. It's probably going to go further than that, but I'm going to say 5 years as a rough estimate to be safe. So those total costs come to about $1,000, and spread that out over 5 years. We do 2 runs of chickens a year, 120 chickens each time. That comes out to $101.90 per batch. And I'm going to divide that out over the 120 chickens to give you an estimate of what it would cost to raise the chickens if you did this consistently for 5 years. Okay, next cost, butchering. So certainly you can go ahead and invest in the equipment and spend the time if you want to butcher them yourselves, and you will save money over time doing it this way. We opted not to. My husband works full time. We have a very busy family. We decided that taking that full day or more to go ahead and do our own butchering was more than we wanted to commit to at this time. I also knew that the upfront cost of buying all of the equipment was going to be a challenge, and I was really very fortunate. I know someone who does mobile butchering, and he brings a truck out and does the butchering for us. We think it's worth the cost, and you'll see in the end that even though we're paying more per time to go ahead and have our chickens butchered for us, we still do very well with profit at the end. If you wanted to buy your own equipment and do it yourself, you're looking at buying anywhere from 2 to 4 of the killing cones. They're $45 a piece. You can try to make something yourself and save the money for sure. You would need to buy probably the Yardbird plucker, which is the most common one. They're $475 to $500 a piece, depending upon where you find them. And then you also need to make, of course, some investment in some tables, probably an outdoor stove so that you can put a large pot for dipping, for boiling water for dipping the chickens, as well as some knives and other accessories. So you could be looking easily at $800 to $1,000 in equipment and setup to be able to do your own butchering. You could share it with another friend or a farmer and split the cost, rent it out to other people. There's lots of ways to save money doing that. We opted instead to go ahead and have somebody else do our butchering for us, and he charges us about $350 to come out and take care of 120 chickens. And when I tell you that it is fast, I'm not exaggerating. He's done in a couple of hours. He brings his truck and trailer in. Everything that he needs is on board except for power and water, which we supply. Everything is done in a couple of hours. They're all slaughtered, they are eviscerated and delivered to us clean, ready to go on ice. My favorite. So we do that and we spend about $350. I have the additional cost of bags and other supplies. You know, there are just trash bags and paper towels and bags and things like that for butchering day. That comes to about $100. So I use the bags when I do the whole chickens. I do the self-sealing bags that you dip in hot water. We also have some cost wrapped up in using vacuum seal bags for the chickens that we part. We vacuum seal those before we put them in the freezer. All right, let's look at the totals now. So this slide shows you how much each category costs. So our chicks cost us about $1 each. Our feed is $4.16 each. The consumables, those are the things like pine shavings and DE and things like that that are used, are 66 cents each. That's per chicken. Construction and startup costs are 85 cents each. That's those bulbs, feeders, waters, that sort of thing. Butchering, $2.90 each, and bags, 83 cents each. Remember, except for the things that are one-time costs, like feed and butchering, the rest of the things I spread out over a 5-year period. I assumed that we use this equipment for 5 years, twice a year, to do 240 chickens per year. That average for all of those costs comes out to $10.40 per bird for us. The question is that worth it? Is it worth the time that we invest? Is it worth the upfront costs and all of that? Well, If I keep doing it for 5 years, I pay back the equipment investment costs that I put in. And if I went to buy that particular bird at Whole Foods, I went to look and see what the pricing was. I haven't bought a chicken at the store in a while. And at Whole Foods, you can get an organic young chicken for about $16 a bird. Now, it's similar weight to what we're raising. We're doing a little over 5 pounds each as an average. And this chicken that I'm looking at here at Whole Foods is a little over 5 pounds as well. So it's $16, and we're doing it for a little over $10 a bird. But it actually gets even better than that if you look at one more part of this. If you're putting in the time to go out and get started with your own chickens, if you're going to buy the feed and go out twice a day, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening to feed, water, and move chickens, then why not raise a few more and share that with friends? We had a lot of friends in our community who wanted to go ahead and buy chickens with us as well, because they wanted something that they knew was raised well and was given a really good, healthy diet. So we said, hey, who wants in? And we had enough people want to buy that we sold about half the birds to our friends. Now, this is just friends who helped put some investment costs in. We only sold them at $14 each. Gave us a little bit back for our time, but not the full price that we could charge if we wanted to sell a bird in our area. We ended up with a $16 bird for our costs for about $6 each. So just by sharing that with a few people in the area who wanted to buy them as well, we had a huge savings. And we ended up with a freezer full of chicken. We did this twice. So we had a little over 100 chickens for ourselves, which is a lot of food. But during the pandemic, all of my college-age kids moved home. So we were back to feeding anywhere from 5 to 7 people a day again. So I usually roast 2 chickens at a time we make it. When you have that much chicken in the freezer, you're more likely to go ahead and make chicken for dinner than something that costs me a lot more at the market. So you can go ahead and take the numbers that I put together and think about what your investment would be. What equipment do you have on hand? What equipment do you need to buy? And what do you need to build? Do you have building materials available on your farm or on your property that would allow you to be able to do this for less? And are you willing to do your butchering yourself? If you are and you want to go ahead and make the investment in the equipment, you can save even more over time. So you have to think about, do I have the space? Do I have the ability to be able to do this? Remember that chickens create a phenomenal amount of manure. So you can't necessarily do it in a small backyard unless you're doing a small chicken tractor with maybe 10 or 12 birds at a time. If you're doing that and you just want a smaller amount of meat, absolutely you can do it in your backyard with a small pen that you move daily. And you do have to move it daily, sometimes twice a day, depending upon the amount of chickens that you have. Chickens need at least 2 square feet per bird to be able to be inside if they're going to be in an enclosure like that. So we're making sure that they're giving fresh grass twice a day and we're moving them constantly. We didn't have the space in our backyard to do 120 at a time, but we knew that it would save us money to do a larger batch at one time. If you're going to put the time in, it's the same amount of time whether you're doing 10 or 120, so we figured let's just do it all at once. We didn't have the space, but our neighbors did. We have an open field right adjacent to our property. We were able to make an arrangement with our neighbor to exchange free chickens in exchange for the use of the field. We're taking great care of the field by putting good manure on it that is making the field come back even stronger than it ever was before. And we take care of parts of the field that weren't maintained well throughout the years, like some bramble that's encroaching in on the property lines, and we're taking care of that for them as well. So it really worked out for us. But if you have the space, say you have an acre or so of open pasture that you can move them on, you can absolutely do this. So I hope that this has been encouraging to you to go ahead and give it a try. Raising your own chickens is not difficult. There's lots of information available right here on my channel. You can go watch the videos about raising chickens. I even have additional videos about making your own stock and broth, which has been a huge added bonus when you have this many chicken carcasses available to you, to go ahead and make your own broth. I haven't had to buy chicken stock or broth at the store. I haven't had to buy poultry in over a year. It's really worked out great for us, and I hope you'll give it a try too. If you have any additional questions that I haven't answered for you, please feel free to throw that down in the comments, and I'll do my best to follow up with you, answer questions for you, and provide additional video material if you want it. Thanks so much for joining me.